Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another monk chat. So here at Empty Cloud Monastery, this is your weekly opportunity to ask all the questions you might have to a panel of Buddhist monks. So to my right, we have our guest of honor, Bhante Sumita, who will be spending the Vassa with us. To my left, we have Ayasoma, our resident of honor, who will also be spending Vassa with us. And to my far left, we have Bhante Sanatavihari, who will not be spending Vassa with us.
Dishonor.
He could be honorable if he would stay here for Vassa.
No, he's very honorable and honored. And welcome to, of course, Bhante Sudaso, here to my right. Also honorable. And welcome to all our friends watching online. Hello to Kausar friend and Geeta who have checked in to say hello, and welcome to everyone else who's just a little number on the screen for now. So whenever you're ready, feel free to type in a question in the live chat, and we'll try our best to answer it. And of course, also all the people here that are currently at the monastery are welcome to ask any questions. Welcome to Michael. Maybe we're going to start actually by answering the question of our friend this morning who had asked about recommendations about their stay at the monastery, at Amaravati monastery. That was their first long stay at a monastery. They were just asking for advice. So as people are, hello Vic, welcome, greetings to you.
And Vic, you had a very interesting question last night. If you could post your question again so we can answer it now.
Okay.
Yes, we're looking forward to that question.
Great. So maybe Bhante Sanatavihari, what are your recommendations for our friend, I think Rob, who is going to Amaravati Monastery for quite a long stay and wanted some advice?
So I've never been to any monasteries of that lineage, but I'll just say in general, when you go stay at a monastery, just do what everyone else is doing and just forget about you doing what you want to do. You got to get rid of all of that and don't worry about what other people are doing. Focus on your own practice and be kind to yourself and don't pay attention to anything that your mind says. It's going to play so many tricks on you and it's going to tell you all these things. Just ignore it. It's just making up stories. And after some time, you'll get used to it and then you'll see that you don't want to leave. But first, you have to go through that anxiety period where you're like, why did I choose this place? No one's good here. Like, this is not real practice. So I'm not ready. I'm no one. Once you get over all of that drama, then you'll be fine.
Great, thank you, Bhante. And maybe Bhante Sumita has advice for people going to a monastery, residing to a monastery for their first time?
For the first time ever in their life?
Yes.
So, if you go to a temple, Buddhist monastery for the first time, just to visit?
I think they're staying for several weeks.
Okay. So in that case, you have to be physically and mentally prepared because it's going to be a different lifestyle. At home, you talk a lot. Yeah, you have to speak less. And then also the monks and all, their lifestyle is different. So you have to expect something different. If you expect it before, I think it is going to be way easier. Otherwise, if you go there and experience that right away, it will be a shock to you. And I think it is better. So maybe you don't have dinner, you don't have some other so-called privileges that you have at home. So you restrict yourself to many things. Maybe you have to practice 8 precepts. And if you are a lay person, you have to practice 8 precepts. So maybe do a little bit of homework before going there. And also you have to sit a lot. Maybe you have to practice with that too. Otherwise you will also be suffering. Why do I have to sit all the time? And so things like this will be something, and then maybe those are some of the things, and learn a little bit of the background of that particular temple monastery that before you are going. I think those protocols can be very helpful if you know it in advance. And anyway, kindness, compassion, patience, and generosity are some of the things that you need to expect from that community. That's going to be a beautiful community, hopefully. And they are really wonderful, and you will have kind of a resetting of your system, and hopefully that will be a very wonderful experience, and all the best.
Great, thank you, Bante. And Bante, do you have any extra words? This morning you had said something, I don't remember anymore, but maybe you want to add any other suggestion?
Yeah, and as I recall this morning, I said just to follow the schedule and guidelines and practice kindness. And if you do those three things, then everything will work out. So I still stand by that answer, but maybe I'll say a little bit more at this time. Carrying on from what Bhante Sumita was saying, it's very important that you let go of all your preferences. So monastic life, much of it is about letting go of what we want to do, letting go of how we want things to be, letting go of what we like and what we dislike. And this is one of the ways that we experience true happiness. We start to realize that preferences are not happiness. Choice is not happiness. And that if we can let go of our preferences and just be okay with whatever the monastery is offering, whether, no matter what it is, so not just in terms of food, but also the schedule and the guidelines and our roommates and everything else that's going on, then we can start to discover a deep serenity, the serenity of not being in control, of being okay with not having much choice in what's happening to us. I'll also share a short anecdote. There's a woman I met many years ago who liked to spend a lot of time at Amaravati. And she told me, when people would ask her, why do you like to spend so much time at the monastery? Why do you go to the monastery? And she answered, because I want to be cold, tired, and hungry. And of course, she's kind of joking when she says this, but it's pointing to the fact that she goes to the monastery because she's willing to be okay with conditions that she would normally avoid. She's willing to train her mind with difficult circumstances. So that's the way it is in monasteries. Monasteries are not comfortable, and they're not supposed to be. Monasteries are meant to push our limits. It's kind of like if you go to the gym. If you go to the gym, you're expecting to push your limits a bit because you know that's how your body gets stronger and healthier. If you go to the gym and you put on your gym clothing and you go into the exercise machine room and then you just get out your pillow and blanket and take a nap, and then after your nap you get up and go home, well, what was the point in going to the gym? You weren't pushing your limits at all. That's the same if you go to the monastery. Expect to push your limits. Don't expect it to be comfortable. Expect it to be challenging. But know that challenge is exactly why it's beneficial. So if you go there willing to be cold, tired, and hungry, and willing to experience that with a serene and peaceful mind, then you'll come out stronger for it.
Great, thank you, Bante, for adding a few more thoughts. It seems like all the Venerables have covered all the essentials. What I will say is we'll share a little bit of my experience. Actually, my first stay, my first go, like my first went and my first stay, they both happen at the same time. I tend to do either 0 or 100%. So instead of visiting a Buddhist monastery, I just went to reside at a Buddhist monastery for a week. The first time I went there, and it was actually in the same lineage of Amaravati monastery. So it was Santa Chittarama monastery, of the lineage of Ajahn Chah in the Thai forest tradition, right outside Rome. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience where it's just very beautiful in that lineage in particular. There is a huge emphasis on the Vinaya. And it's the first thing that actually, was presented to me and that caught my interest in the way of how beautiful it looked and how beautifully it was practiced. And it gives you actually a sort of live 3D painting of part of the Buddhist teachings in terms of what the Buddha created, in terms of not only the Dhamma, which is incredibly helpful, but the Vinaya. So both, the teachings of how things are and also the teachings of how to restrain ourselves to understand how things are. And in that atmosphere in the forest, not having any duties, not having any type of worry, then we have these conditions to actually really look at our minds. And sometimes what we see is not the most pleasant. Can be a little bit frightening, and that's because most of the time we distract ourselves with different types of entertainments, whether they're TV, music, etc., or food, eating at all sorts of hours or whenever we want. And in a monastery, we have those sort of restrictions that then can be very helpful. But we're surrounded also by people who are following even more precepts than we are, and are leading by example. So look at that, look at the beauty of the happiness that actually are in especially senior monastics. At Amaravati, you'll have the opportunity to see so many senior monastics who have been practicing in this way for many years, actually, like Bhante Sumita, who's been a monk for 40 years. To have the opportunity to be surrounded by, the majority of the Sangha that has been in the robes for that long is actually really unique and really inspiring. So treasure that opportunity, and also seeing, the Sangha, what the Buddha created, in 3D right there. So that's what I would say. And we have a few questions that have popped up in the meanwhile. So first of all, hello to Emerson, who says both good evening and buonasera. I think they heard about the the Italian bhikkhuni, maybe. Hello, Vic is asking to Venerable Sumita, has a specific question for Venerable Sumita. Would you please comment on the description of Vijnana in Anguttara Nikaya 11, Kevadda Sutta, as signless, luminous, and boundless? It is described as, quote unquote, where the elements find no footing. Later in the sutta, the Buddha describes, quote, with the cessation of Vijnana, there this ceases. Is the first description that of formless jhanas, and the second description of Nibbana. And the first description is often used by some to describe Vijnana as permanent and eternal. Okay.
Can you repeat the first part again?
Maybe Bhante Sudaso, if you can paraphrase.
He's talking about the quote, Vijnanang anidasanang sabang pabang. Are you familiar with this one? Like conscious, how does he describe it? Translated here. Signless, luminous, and boundless. So he's referring... Yeah. So in the Kevadda Sutta, there's this short verse where the Buddha talks about Vijnana, which is signless, luminous, and boundless. Signless, I assume, is animittang. So animittang, pabasarang, and boundless. I'm not sure what the Pali word is. I used to know this verse, but I've forgotten. But then later on in that same stanza, the Buddha says, with the cessation of Vijnana, there this ceases. So he's asking, is the first description that of the formless jhanas, and the second one a description of nibbana? Then he further says, the first description is used by some people to describe vijnana as permanent and eternal.
I would say I would give up a detailed explanation later on. I think that is safer to say that because I want to study a little bit more about that. Vijnana is commonly explained and in many suttas. I think Pabhasaramidam Bhikkhave Chittang is mentioned, like the mind, the consciousness, and they are kind of at the beginning it is a little bit of more luminous, and but then again the vijnana, they need to have some kind of an object. Let's say when you see something, you see that form, and that is your object. That's where your vijnana needs to have some kind of an object to work on, to live upon. And it is in Dhammapada also, I think it is said like guhasayang, right? Like it lives in a cave, something like in our body. So it doesn't normally stay without something. So that the vijnana has to live with something. And so these rupa, chakku, sota, ghana, jivha, kaya, mana, these are the 6 things, 6 objects, and through these faculties you see the rupa, saddha, gandha, rasa, pottabha, dhamma, and that way the chakku vijnana, sota vijnana, ghana vijnana, jivha vijnana, kaya vijnana, and mana vijnana work upon. So you can see tinnan sangati paso, when you have the eye, and when you have the form, and then you have the consciousness, and that is where the I conscious comes into existence. And then when you hear something, that ear, and then the sound, and then again the consciousness, ear consciousness, they come into existence. Same with the tongue, taste, and the vijnana or consciousness. That is called rasa vijnana or jivha vijnana. And the same with the ghana vijnana, the nose and the smell and the consciousness, and the body and the contact and the consciousness, and the mind and the dhamma and the consciousness. So these 6-fold consciousness. I think in the suttas we have that kind of explanation. If we go to Abhidhamma, they have much more in-depth, profound explanations about the vijnana. Does that sound good for now? At least. Yeah, we will describe more, but Bhante can add something if you...
Yeah, I just want to add that Bhante Sujato wrote several articles on exactly the verses that you're asking about, Vic. So you might read Bhante Sujato's articles. If you can't find them, send us an email and I'll give you the links. But Bhante Sujato makes the argument that the first line is talking about the arupa samapatis. And then because, of course, nothing is permanent and eternal. And that also includes vijnana. Vijnana is also a sankhara. It's not permanent. It's not eternal. So that would certainly be a misunderstanding to use that verse to claim that vijnana is eternal. Anyway, I can send you the links to the articles. I'm very interested in hearing Bhante Sumitta's analysis of those verses. So I'm looking forward to that one. That should be fun. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Venerables. And Well, Gita gives a Yelp review on Ajahn Sumedho and Amaravati. So Ajahn Sumedho gets thumbs up from Gita. Although I believe that Ajahn Sumedho is not at Amaravati monastery anymore. Isn't he in
He's in
Thailand?
Thailand.
Yeah, he's in Thailand. But Ajahn Amaro is Amaro. Amaro, yeah. Is at Amaravati Monastery, so you can get another senior disciple of Ajahn Chah there. And No Identity says, good evening. Just to follow up on Sunyata, is it incorrect to say that ultimately the Dhamma is also empty of inherent existence? That is to say, is this dualistic thinking? Bhante Sudaso?
It is correct to say that ultimately the Dhamma is also empty of inherent existence. Yeah, that's true. Because the Dhammas are sankharas. They're part of samsara. So everything that the Buddha taught was a sankhara. The only thing which is not a sankhara is nibbana, the nibbana dhatu. Now that's a question though, is the nibbana dhatu empty? Does the nibbana dhatu also have the nature of sunyata? Bhante?
Yeah, I think Nibbana Dhatu also can be sunya or like empty. And it's good to ask in the empty cloud monastery.
Yeah, so that would mean that, yeah, absolutely all Dhammas, even the Nibbana Dhatu, are empty of inherent existence. And as for your question, is it dualistic thinking? Actually, the teachings on emptiness are precisely meant to take us beyond dualistic thinking. That's exactly what they're targeted at. So saying that all things are empty of inherent existence is the opposite of dualistic thinking. That's where we see the opposite of dualism.
Great, thank you, Venerables. And hello to Dulani and Jaitan. So Dulani asks, regarding yesterday's topic, if it's true that impermanence plays a major role in ours and everyone's journey through samsara, how can we escape the tightening bonds of it? Well, I wasn't part of yesterday's conversation, but Bhante Sanata Vihari was, so I'll pass it on to Bhante.
How can we, what was the last one?
If it's true that impermanence plays a major role in ours and everyone's journey through samsara, how can we escape the tightening bonds of it?
Through developing the Noble Eightfold Path and then completely free from it by realizing Nibbana. So the more you practice, the more you loosen its hold on you.
Great. And also, is Panya and Prajna synonymous? Well, yes. Great. You got two answers in one. Thank you, Bhante. And Dawn asks, being a lay practitioner, I meditate daily. Very good. Most days, my son of 5 sits with me. Any tips of meditation for young children? I just remind him to follow his breath in and out. Any other tips you would offer, or is the practice of sitting still for 10 minutes good enough? Thank you, Don. Actually, I'll pass this also to Bhante Sanata Vihari, since he's quite, he's well known to be very good with teaching children.
Yes. Yeah, so, we got to get creative with children. We can't expect them to practice like adults. We can get them there slowly. So I have a couple of things that I do with them. So one of them is I practice it's called like the 5 mountain meditation. So everyone likes to go on a trip. Everyone wants to go on a field trip. So let's go on a trip, guys. And these are 5 mountains, right? Each finger. And then you're this finger over here and you're traveling. And when the finger goes up, you breathe in. And when it goes down, you breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. So that's one of the things. And you go back and forth as long as they can stand it. And then, because they get bored. And there's another one called like the rainbow breath, where you tell them to breathe in and they bring their hands up like this. And breathe out. And breathe in. and breathe out. So you gotta guide them. You gotta keep them, engaged. So teaching children is you have to be engaged with them all the time. And metta meditation is very well. Also, you can say, think about your friends, think about your pet, think about the squirrels, like, and you got to give them something all the time. You just can't tell them like, okay, be quiet for 5 minutes, I'm not talking to you. Like, that's very difficult, for kids to do that unless they're naturally inclined, that's their temperament. So there's so many like little tools that you can use like this online. You can find, there's one place that's really good called mytherapistaid.com. I think that's what it's called. And then you go to the kids section and you go under mindfulness or like meditation for kids. And there's so many things right there that you can teach them, like how to meditate. And if once they get good at that, then maybe you can introduce them to like formal Buddhist meditation once they learn the basics.
Great. Thank you, Venerable. I like the rainbow, is it?
Yeah, rainbow breath.
We can also do it as adults. For Pride Month, actually, next year, we'll do the rainbow
breath.
rainbow breath.
I would also encourage you to bring your son to Buddhist temples. Because Buddhist temples are often quite used to having small children around, and they already have ways of making children feel comfortable and involved.
Yeah, and to learn sila. So that's the foundation to happiness. And a happy mind then gets easily concentrated.
Especially Sri Lankan temples, I would recommend.
Yes, yes.
I think sometimes in the temples, some elderly people, like elders, the parents, for example, when the children are around at the temple, they are a little scared, like they run here and there. So they try to educate them, stay calm, and you can go here and there. And I think it's not going to work that way. And maybe we elders have to think, children are children. If you try to make them calm, it's not going to happen. Rather, the parent and also the child will go out. So it's not going to help at all. I think instead, we have to think, this is children, and we have to be compassionate for them. And if they run around, you should not get angry. You should be compassionate for them. You should have that khanti or patience for them. That way, the children will learn from the elders by observing. Remember, they have such strong photographic memories. Whenever they come to the temple, they will take photographic memories of the Buddha, of the robe, of the monks, and how the parents practice. And they will try, in their own little ways, they will try, and let them learn their own way. Don't try to push them into the limits, or don't try to take them away from the main practice. I think that's not really recommended.
Great, thank you, Bante. And Dave asks, in Theravada Buddhism, is there such a thing as the 10 destructive actions? If so, what was the destructive action you find most difficult to overcome? Bante Sudaso?
Well, you might be referring to what we call the 10 unwholesome courses of action. So the 3 unwholesome body actions, the 3 unwholesome verbal actions, and the 4 unwholesome verbal actions and 3 unwholesome mental actions. So in total, the 10, I think it's called akusala patta.
That's akusala? Yeah.
Yeah.
Akusala.
The 10 unwholesome courses of action. So I'm not sure if that's the same as the 10 destructive actions you're referring to. It might be. If it's different, please let me know. The 10, which was the one I found the most difficult to overcome? Harsh speech. Yeah, that one's a challenge for me. The others, not so much. But harsh speech has always been a bit of a struggle for me. Yeah.
There is an easy way. Noble silence.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Great. Now we're all silent.
Okay, that's the end of the program.
All right. And Emerson asks, do you ever try to make sense of your dreams from a Buddhist perspective? How's your relationship to them? So from my understanding, aside from Tibetan Buddhism, there's not that much emphasis on dreams that I'm aware about. And I'll just share my relationship to them. I just don't think about them. Actually, as my practice keeps on moving forward, I'm realizing in hindsight, of course, you can never know your delusion while you're immersed in it, but you understand it in hindsight. And dreams are actually, whenever I was paying attention to dreams growing up, I was just fueling my delusion. Also because in my dreams, pretty much everything I ever wanted would always manifest. I hardly ever had nightmares. Dreams were really like that's why I was kind of addicted to sleeping, because it was kind of great. I would fall asleep and everything that I wanted would manifest. And actually, it was not unsatisfying in my dreams. So then that would give me the fuel from when I was awake to actually pursue my sort of quote unquote dreams. But then they weren't satisfying in quote unquote reality. And they were dukkha. So since I stopped paying attention to them and actually seeing also my dreams as unsatisfying, much better. Yeah, much, much, much easier. So I don't know if the Venerables know of anything from the suttas that talk about relating to dreams. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, like Queen Mahamaya had a dream when Prince Siddhartha was about to be conceived, and there was a dream like a white elephant coming to her, and she was taken to the Anotatta villa, the lake, where she was like 4 guardian angels took her and showered her, and then she saw a beautiful white elephant with a lotus flower coming, circumambulating her 3 times and entering her womb. That was the first ever dream that we have in the Buddhist history. And then we have also like the Buddha himself had some dreams just before his enlightenment. And then there are 16 dreams that we have with regard to King Kosala, different signs of future. And then Buddha explained those 16. I think it is Mahasupina Jataka or something. We have to figure it out which one is it. So King Kosala had discussion about those dreams with the Buddha. And then again, I remember Mettanisansa Sutta, it is said, Sukhang Supati, the people who practice loving kindness meditation, metta meditation, they can sleep comfortably. As Venerable Ayasoma said, she can sleep well, so she's more compassionate. The people who are a little bit, angry or aggressive, something, they can't sleep, because you think all the time how to revenge that person. You are restless. When you are restless, you can really sleep properly. And so even at night, you have nightmares. And the people who practice loving kindness meditation, they can sleep right away. Sukhang Supati. Sukhang Patibujjati, they can wake up very easily with more energy, like a blooming of a flower. Sukhang Patibujjati. Na papakang supinang passati, they will not have nightmares. Papakang supinang, no evil dreams. So I think these are good examples. And there are 11 benefits of Mettanisansa Sutta that talks about, and that involves the sleep as well. The first few benefits are definitely directly related to the sleep. Sleep is such an important part of our life. Remember, we all have daytime and nighttime. So that time we recover. Our body needs some rest. Our mind needs some rest. And that time it's very important that we practice, that we have good rest. And if you have comfortable sleep, the following day would be so great, right? You have a good sleep, you wake up really very strong and more positive, and then your following day would be great. So if you want, if you don't want insomnia, If you don't want nightmares, practice loving kindness.
Thank you, Bhante. And in terms of the Buddha having dreams, so is there anywhere where the Buddha actually talks about the interpretation of the dreams?
I guess it is Mahavagga Pali in Vinaya Pitaka. The first part of the Buddha's life is explained there. Yeah, I'll also look into that later on.
Great, thank you. Maybe I had a subconscious bias and I completely skipped. It's interesting, conditioning, mental conditioning. I was just like, oh.
I want to add a little bit more. Like last time, I think I was explaining about the dream. I'm in the sleep. So before, when you go to bed, if you practice while laying down, you practice, you scan your body and you meditate loving kindness. So start loving kindness to yourself and in everyone. Hopefully when you are in the loving kindness meditation with the body scanning, you might fall asleep. And then if you had a good, it's the skill that you need to practice, like in between the sleep and the wakefulness. If you can connect those two together, your whole night will be a meditation. So that's why when you wake up in the morning, you will right away connect to the place where you stop the night time before sleeping. So keep working on that and you will get that beautiful experience. That's really amazing. If you can feel that when you wake up in the morning, you go right away, I stop my scanning right here, and then you will start working. Continue to do that. So just a tip for you, those people who are practicing loving kindness meditation.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante is revealing all his secrets. That's how he's always happy and peaceful.
Loving kindness hacks.
Yes, radiating metta 24/7. And Bobby asks, do you find the practice of Shikantaza, silent illumination, worthwhile? Well, Bhante Sudaso, it's one of his favorite topics. And so you can find on the YouTube channel many talks on the subject matter that Bhante Sudaso has offered. Do you want to... I think he wants to take the question.
Though you also use the practice sometimes, so you could also talk about this one.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe actually Bhante Sanata Vihari, since you hardly have the opportunity to ask this question to Bhante Sanata Vihari. So
actually, that's the one you use most mornings. Like I've been using that for a long time. I learned it at the same time that I learned like Anapanasati, but I just noticed that when I was trying to just focus on the breath or count the breath, it was just like it was giving into my fighting spirit, and I was like, oh no, just more version. So yeah, I can see how it can be difficult for some people because people are used to, like, we live in this society where you need to get things done and there's like check marks and you need to accomplish tasks. And that's like one where there's like no task or no check mark. There's no real objective and there's no object, So it's like you're kind of like free falling, like with no parachute. So, what I've noticed is just that I just try to not, how can I say? Well, it's difficult to say. Not do anything really. Not do anything. I feel like I'm gonna say some ridiculous thing, like they say in the Zen koans that don't make any sense. I'm gonna like say some paradoxical thing that's not gonna help you at all. But I think just doing it and not trying to concentrate, not trying to fixate on anything. I think it's a wonderful practice. I like it a lot. It's very relaxing. It's yeah. I mean, that's all I can say about it. It's difficult to talk about it now that I thought about it. It's very difficult. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea you practice it every day.
Yeah, about it.
Wow, that's wonderful. We'll need to talk some more.
But I can't talk well about it. I haven't figured out how to speak about it.
Well, that's because it's beyond words. But you have to say something.
Yeah.
Well, it is like the only. I remember when I was first able to practice it, because we actually had several different monastics in the past when we were in Rockaway Beach, coming to teach Science Illumination or Shikantaza. Actually, as in it's the same practice, but we had both Japanese Zen priests coming to share the practice, as well as chant practitioners, and in particular Science Illumination, the disciples from Master String Yen. And I remember at the very beginning, it was such a nightmare for me. It was so difficult. And I was like sitting and like, like trying, just to sit. And it was just so difficult for me not to engage my mind into holding anything, to the point where actually, pretty much any kind of meditation that I would normally struggle with, like, seemed easy. And I had some really strong aversion to it. But then I remember one day I was so tired, like just physically and mentally tired. And that my mind just didn't want to think, didn't want to do anything. But also I wasn't tired usually my defilement is restlessness. So my hindrance is restlessness rather than sloth and torpor. When I fall asleep in meditation, it's because I really am sleep deprived. But if I'm just tired, I won't fall asleep. So I was in this state where I wasn't falling asleep, but I was just tired of thinking or of producing noise in the mind. So I started sitting, and I was just sitting. And interestingly enough, like at a certain point, I was like, wow, I am just sitting. That's all I needed to do all this time. And it was great. Yeah. So actually I use it. I still, it's not my main practice, because I feel like I can't deliberately do it. It's actually dependently arisen. When the conditions are there naturally in my mind, I can just sit. Otherwise, I need to investigate some object. Like if my mind is in its usual sort of quote unquote normal state, whatever that means, then it wants to investigate things. But if I'm in that, relaxed, I guess maybe I've done, as Bhante Sumita says, I've done probably some good loving kindness, so everything is peaceful. I'm more close to Bhante Sumita's day-to-day state of existence, and then I can just sit. So it's interesting. So when you think about it outside of the cushion, how difficult is just to sit? Isn't that ridiculous? So this is what is amazing about actually the Buddha Dhamma. It's just it's so simple, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing how difficult, how much of a difficult time we can have with doing simple practices. And also how, we think that practices should be so complicated, so elaborate. And in reality, we're just complicating even more and more. There's so many different, you see even in the suttas, since beginningless time, humans try to purify the mind, thinking, going into the most, difficult and atrocious, mortifying, both physically and mentally, practices. And how brilliant the Buddha was in actually finding, some really simple but really powerful practices, both in terms of restraining ourselves, like in our conduct and in day-to-day practice, and also in terms of meditation. The instructions that he has given us, very clear, practical, but difficult in their simplicity.
I always find it interesting when Ayasoma talks about how she likes to practice silent illumination when she's really tired, because I like to practice it when I'm very restless. So I find that, like, when I'm very restless and agitated, then trying to do any kind of object-based meditation is very difficult for me. It's like focusing on mindfulness of the body or loving kindness meditation. I find that very difficult when I'm agitated. But doing nothing whatsoever, for some reason, hits the spot perfectly. So when my mind is very agitated, then I'll just bring my body to stillness and just stop doing anything. And the mind just naturally goes into silent illumination practice. And I think actually this is because Ayasoma said that historically her main hindrance is restlessness instead of sleepiness. For me, it's the opposite. Historically, my main hindrance has usually been sleepiness instead of restlessness. These days I drink a lot of tea, so that's not such a problem anymore. But it means that then the tendency of my mind is to relax. So when it's very agitated, not doing anything is often exactly the right thing for me to do. The mind just naturally slips into that balanced state. So silent illumination, the mind has to be in a very balanced state. There's perfect balance between relaxation and alertness. So for me, that's when the mind is agitated, then I can hit that balance. For Ayasoma, it's apparently the other way around, when her mind is sleepy. So your mileage may vary. But it is a very valuable tool to have as part of your meditation toolkit. I do not recommend that it be the only tool in your toolkit, because contrary to what they like to say in the Zen world, it is not a one-size-fits-all meditation technique, and it is not suitable for all circumstances. But it is very suitable for some conditions. So it's a very valuable tool to have in your kit, along with other tools.
And I guess we're only missing Bhante Sumita's thoughts on
I
Samadhi.
think I remember the little girl's example. She gave a beautiful beautiful technique how to cultivate like thoughtless, not to think of anything. Like she says, you have some pole or something in front of you, like with open eyes, and then you look in between that pole and yourself. In between, you think you see, and you see that emptiness, kind of empty in the mind, and that way you don't feel sleepy too. And maybe you feel something, you see something beyond that, but it should be a little blur, and you focus on the emptiness in between. That's a space in between. I haven't heard that technique before, but that looks amazing. I must say these are all really valid, and the girl is just 3.5 years, and her powerful meditation techniques are really, really helpful. You may try that. And also, I feel like when we hear all these difficulties, it is just like you jump into a swimming pool. You have never swum before, and then it's so difficult, and you feel like you are drowning, and you are tired, you bodily pain, and then you want to give it up, and it's not so easy at the beginning. It's so hard, and you try so much to be in on the surface of the water, and so it takes time. And if you know, then once you know the art of swimming, you will feel like a fish, and you will enjoy the rest of your life swimming and without any difficulty. And once you train your mind, it'll always be helpful. And the Dhammapada Buddha said, Natang mata pita kaira anye vapicha nyataka samma panihitang chittang seyyaso nantato kare. There is no mother, no father who has done so much good to you more than your mind. The one who has trained his or her mind can be so much benefited with that trained mind and that skill with you, that technique with you can always help you so much.
Thank you, Dante. And No Identity is requesting a discussion on the Heart Sutra. So
I can do it.
great, Dante. So that's all volunteers because
It's been on my list for ages. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Great. And also, what is Shifu Simplicity? We have a Mahayana Bhikkhuni that will be giving a series of talks starting in August, the first week of
4th.
August, August 4th.
What is the topic?
I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, she'll be giving a 6-talk series, but I don't remember the topic.
Yeah, I thought it was the Heart Sutra, but maybe not.
No, it was something else.
We will announce it next week in our disorganized religion model. Ananda is giving us a judging look. Anyway, it will be a great series of talks. Shifu Simplicity is she's 20 Vasa, 20-something Vasa. 20-something Vasa Bhikkhuni trained in one of the main lineages in Taiwan, Mahayana lineages, the Chongtai, that I mispronounced.
Zhongtai
lineage, and she has her meditation center and vihara in Berlin. So she will be offering these talks starting the first week of August for 6 weeks. And oh, great. We have another question for Bhante Sumita, which is one of the frequently asked questions. So we need more diversity of answers. So Bhante Sumita is perfect for you. If there is no self, what gets reborn? And what happens in between rebirth? Also, the second one is...
They're 2 different questions.
Yeah, and it's less usual than the first one is...
The second one is easy to answer. It's the first one that's more fun.
Yeah, so can you repeat the question again?
If there's no self, what gets reborn?
Yeah, so it is according to the Paticca Samuppada, it is the conditions in the past that creates the present life, and the conditions in the present that creates the future life. So there is no, just like here, when you are in front of a mirror, you stand in front of a mirror, you see somebody, right? So you think, is that you? Is that Ananda in front of the mirror? So in the mirror, you see like Ananda. Then who is you? Like the person in front, and then there is another one in the mirror too. So in Visuddhimagga, Bhante Buddha Gosa mentioned, Nacha so nacha anyo. There is no other person, but not any other one too. So it's continuous combination of conditions and causes and conditions. Paticca Samuppada theory, I think that's important. And there is no concrete permanent entity that is going throughout. There is nothing like that. So in Buddhism, it is always conditions that create the other things. So there is nothing like that. So let's say like when we were born, we were very little, and then we were changing, and every time we were changing too. It was like the conditions that we had, maybe the food, maybe the other things that have changed us, and mentally and physically we are also changing. They are conditionally helpful to each other, mutually helpful to each other, but there is nothing permanent in that. I also remember in Milinda Panya, King Milinda is asking a question about the karma, theory of karma, and he is asking, is there any storage of karma? If not, how do we get that karmic result? And then Venerable Nagasena gives a beautiful answer to that. He actually, instead of answering, he's asking a question from King Milinda. He's asking, what is this tree that you're seeing in front of you? Oh, that is a mango tree. So what happens to the fruit? Now you see the fruits, right? And what happens to those fruits before, like they were not there anymore? Do you think it is hidden in the bark or in the root or in the leaves? Where were they? And then when King Milinda said, oh, it is not a question to ask. It is just the conditions, you know, when the season is correct, when the fruition is right, and when all the conditions are right, the fruition happens, the flowers come bloom, and then the fruits come into being. Just like that, when the conditions are right, the karma also gives result. Just like that, we also have to think the rebirth concept of rebirth is in I think in Buddhist concept, like samsara is a circle of rebirth, birth and rebirth, birth after birth. But if you see the Chuti Chitta and the Patisanjit Chitta, according to that, there is not much of a difference. Like, I mean, not much of a gap. So once somebody dies and he or she will be born, or that condition will give birth to another life. As long as you do not decode that, or you do not crack that circle of transmigration, you will always be born and reborn, born and reborn. Bhante, you want to add something?
Well, just on the subject of what happens in between rebirth. So this actually it's been a subject of controversy and debate in Theravada Buddhism for 2,000 years or so. Because the standard answer is, as Bhante Sumita said, that when one life ends, then the next life begins. But there's a few places in the suttas that seem to refer to something between rebirths. But then that in-between state would also be considered a life of its own. Yeah. That would also be considered a state of existence. So you can't really say that there's anything in between rebirths. But there are a few places in the suttas which seem to indicate that sometimes there's a short period of time where there is a mind, there is consciousness.
Right?
Yeah, but there's no body yet. So there's, again, this is a point of debate, but there's some evidence for this. But that itself, that period of time where there's a mind with no body, would still be considered a form of existence, a form of life. So I don't know if that's quite answering your question about in between rebirth, because again, technically there's nothing, it's moment after moment of existence. There's not anything in between those moments.
I think in Karaniyametta Sutta there is a word called Sambhavesi. So Sambhavesi is like the baby in the womb, you know. So it's not yet born. So, but still a birth, still a life. So some even want to refer to that way. And there are like some similes, like a candle. There is no distance, no gap between the flame and the wick. So there is no gap between this birth and that birth. And then also the leech, you know, the leech would walk like this. So the leech will first grasp something before leaving the other side. So it'll always be like that. It'll be connected to each other. It'll be helpful, I think, more to do with the Paticca Samuppada theory. Yeah, like Atite hetavo pancha idani phala panchakang, idani hetavo pancha ayating phala panchakang. So the 5 hetus in the past will cause the present existence, and then the present 5 causes will cause the future existence. So this is a continuous circle. So continuous conditions and causes.
Thank you, Venerables. While we were talking, I was thinking it would be a very interesting question to answer. If there is a self, what doesn't get reborn? Because actually, it makes no sense to believe that, if someone actually believes that there is a self, then they think that the body then disappears. It's kind of counterintuitive.
I think last time I asked the question from Ajahn Bhikkhu Tanisaro when he visited our university. I remember he was saying there can be many cells, separate cells, but they are also maybe interconnected, but there is nothing permanent.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was thinking, because usually whenever one asks this question is because they also come to they start from an assumption that there is a self. But actually, even with the assumption of a self, it makes no sense that then at a certain point there is.
You see, when it comes to avidya, the ignorance, then we have avidya paccaya sankhara. So we create karma, right? So karmic conditions we create, and because of that avidya, and then because of avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, that causes the vijnana next stage, and then vijnana paccaya nama rupa, and then we have a name and form, and then because of name and form, the 6 faculties, what do you call, salayatana, and then all these things will follow. So they are interrelated too. Avidya tanha, the most important links, most powerful links that we are connected to the samsara. It's very hard to get rid of them, and because of that we think our body, we think this is me, right? I think this is my body, and this is me that is working. But interestingly, with the sansaric existence, these are the tools that we have to come out. Using these tools, we have to come out of this well, and there is no other way. So that's why the Buddha said, look into yourself, and then you will see there is the nibbana is within you, not outside. And nibbana is right here, right now, and within you, and not outside. So I think it's also very important. Maybe we can discuss more about that in future talks too.
Maybe we could have a Sangha roundtable on this subject, because actually there's more I'd like to discuss with you on this topic.
Yeah.
But we have other questions, so I think.
Yes.
But briefly, Antara, Parinibai, and Agami. We're going to talk about that.
Great. Well, it's good that Bhante Sumita will be here for the Vasa, so there will be plenty of opportunities to discuss all these topics. And Dulani says, for me, I always happen to fall asleep during meditation. Did you have trouble in the beginning while meditating? And if so, how did you overcome it over the time? Bhante Sanata Vihari.
He's the one who had the problem.
You never had sleepiness during meditation?
Mine was always restless or...
Oh,
him and I are similar.
Space aliens. Yeah, so one thing that makes a huge difference is having your eyes open when you meditate. But to be honest, the #1 most effective technique I've ever used for combating drowsiness during meditation is tea. I'm not even kidding. It just makes such a world of difference. I like oolong tea in particular. It's relatively mild to drink, but surprisingly powerful. People think that tea is not that strong. Well, try oolong tea. Good oolong teas will have you wired for hours, and then you won't fall asleep during meditation. And it doesn't have the same agitating effect that coffee can sometimes have on people. So if you find coffee makes you agitated, try oolong tea. As well as falling asleep during meditation, also it's important for me to use a meditation technique that I enjoy and that I find interesting. That also helps a lot. Yeah, I mean, realistically, those are the three really big ones. And actually, another really, really important one is making sure you're getting enough sleep. This is not to be overlooked. If you're not getting enough sleep, then it's going to come out somewhere, and often where it comes out is when you're trying to meditate. So make sure you sleep enough. It's really important. Yes, you might need to a lot more time in the evening, go to bed earlier so you get enough sleep. You might need to take a little nap in the afternoon as your schedule permits. Yeah, make sure you're getting enough sleep. Those are my thoughts.
Great.
I think, yeah, may I add something?
Yes, please.
So like if you try to get some external help like tea, maybe some people might say opium is a good way to, you don't have to sleep at all then. You can keep awake the whole night. And but I would like to say, as Bante said, you need to be physically and mentally prepared. And let's say like you have meditation at 6 a.m. You need to know that, okay, I'm going to meditate tomorrow at 6 a.m. So you are physically and mentally registered in your system. And if you are tired, don't do that. Maybe like don't do the sitting meditation. Just walking meditation would be helpful for you if you feel sleepy. I'm sure you will not fall asleep while walking. And then also physically and mentally preparedness, and then maybe take a shower, and then you are strong and determined, and before starting the meditation, you think of yourself, may my meditation be successful today. And so there are little things that you need to know. Maybe you can also have some blessing from the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Oh Deva, Brahma, oh spiritual friends, may they also bless me. Something aspiration at the beginning can also be helpful, but try to accept what it is. For example, if you study, I remember like it happened to me too. Sometime in the library, just before the exam, we start studying and you fall asleep. So at the library, first few days you fall asleep, but you keep doing it, and then your mind will register, oh, this guy is studying nowadays. So you will not fall asleep later on. So you keep doing it, even the meditation, even if you fall asleep, keep working on that, and then eventually your mind will be ready to register. Then you will not fall asleep.
Great. Thank you, Venerable. Actually, Venerables, since you both answered. And Scott says, I'm considering the statement that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. Could the Venerables comment on not self and how pain is involved, for example, with insults? Bhante Sanata Vihari. It's the third time I tried to pass.
You can't dodge this one.
So first part, pain and suffering. So I would say the pain would just be like the physical sensation. So the neurons firing and sending a signal to the brain, and then the suffering would be like the affect or the emotional reaction to it, how it's being interpreted, how you feel about that certain reaction. So, in my personal experience before I was a monk, I used to love exercise, and I basically torture myself, and the next days I'd be really sore, but I would feel that pain as something pleasant, like, oh, it's showing me that I'm progressing and I'm getting better. And then we know that people have certain, what can we call it, fetishes also, and they perceive things to be painful as pleasure. They like them, right? Pleasurable things. So we can see that there's a clear distinction between pain pleasure and like happiness and suffering. They're two different things. For most people, they kind of coincide, just because the way we're all brought up together and we share like similar experiences. But just because for most people they come together doesn't mean they are necessarily always to coincide. Then the second part, something with anatta, right? Like I didn't get that part.
With insults, like
Oh,
how
insults?
can we apply?
Those people are just dumb. Why would you listen to a bala?
Wow, cracked up, Bante. So that's how.
You can't leave us, Bante. You bring so much joy to this place.
Yeah. What? Like, my mom used to say, in Spanish, si no te, what is it? How is it? Like, basically, it's like if those people are not taking care of you, then something bad word, forget about them. Their opinion doesn't matter. And that was kind of like my motto always in life. When people would insult me, yes, initially I would feel shocked, like, why would they say that? And then I'd be like, who is this person to insult me? Like, man, they're just some like person off the street. Who cares? Like, they're dumb. Like, I shouldn't take their opinion seriously. And if you're a Buddhist, you know that everyone's delusional and ignorant. So then you just put that and you put that on them. It's just an ignorant statement. It's a delusional statement. So, yeah, I don't know. I understand why some people, it hurts them and they get bothered by it. But the more you reflect on how insane it is to get upset and how insane it is for you to like let other people determine how you're going to feel and how you're going to think and what you're going to do, you're just like, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to give that power to someone else. Like if anyone should have that power, it should be me. And you start developing that.
Yeah, thank you, Bante. Yeah, I mean, the Buddha puts it in the category of things to be transcended by endurance. So together with cold, with heat, with creeping things as we're meditating, with all of that, also unpleasant and hurtful words. So as we practice patience, so we kind of lower our our expectations of what is. We only think that we're going to be happy if everything meets our. If we're surrounded only by great people, even when we're surrounded by great people, actually, those great people will sometimes say things that are not going to be that pleasant. It's actually mind-blowing. Even now that I live in monasteries, I realize that even though I'm surrounded by literally the nicest people on earth, after a while you get so used to it that then you're like, oh, they could be more skillful, And now they're speaking. Oh, that was really hurtful. Then I leave the monastery for 5 minutes and I'm like, oh, whoa, oh, actually everybody is delightful. So that means I got comfortable instead of actually built the endurance. So what we need to do is, kind of create a thick skin, which doesn't mean necessarily, it doesn't mean like repressing our feelings, but rather understanding, as Bante has mentioned, that we're all trembling here together. So Anukampa, I love that literal translation of compassion, trembling together. So the delusion that we have in our minds is also present in the delusion in the minds of others, and the delusional minds of others are also a reflection of our delusion. So unless we only deal with enlightened beings or beings with certain levels of awakening, and by the way, it's incredibly noticeable as soon as you are with someone in the presence of someone who is an advanced practitioner, actually even just a practitioner, but an advanced practitioner, as time goes by, then you're like, oh wow, this is how this practice shaves off these layers of delusion. But when delusion is present, inevitably we're all going to step on each other's toes, with sometimes less carefully than others. And we need to be, compassionate with ourselves and others. So forgive others for their delusion, and also forgive ourselves for hurting and insulting and offending people on a day-to-day basis. because we do it. That's also why we have this practice of asking for forgiveness, even when we think there's nothing to, to ask forgiveness for. Aya Sudina, who is a senior monastic who spent a week with us, she just left a few days ago. And I don't think that anybody, currently present in the room anyway, has done anything through body, speech, and mind that was offensive towards her. But just in case, we asked for forgiveness before she left, because we might have, she was kind enough not to complain or not to point it out, but we might have. So we go into the better safe than sorry. And when others offend us, we try to build up, our resilience towards it, and also lower our expectations on thinking that we're only going to relate to perfectly enlightened beings that are going to say everything properly with care and love and all those conditions. Realistically, not going to happen.
So the second part is about insulting.
Yes.
How to deal with that insulting.
Yes.
I personally do metta meditation. I think of those people who insult me. I think better for them. May all good be with them. May all good health with them. May all the comforts be with them. I try that. That way I don't feel stressed. I feel so relaxed. This is my way of practicing. It works for me beautifully. So if there is someone who is not comfortable, even if that person is next to me, I just mentally send that loving kindness to that person. If someone is in my vicinity that I feel like that person is not so comfortable with me, I send the loving kindness to that person. So I don't feel, I don't disturb my inner peace. Most important thing is that, if you react to that situation, when somebody is there that you think or you judge or whatever, that person is not comfortable with you, the moment you see that person, that brain chemistry changes. Your attitude changes, your palpitation, everything changes. So the moment you see, because the anger, the hatred or whatever, they are very strong meditation objects too. Really good. You don't feel sleepy if you have anger. Yes. You feel awake, and that's also a good way to practice your loving kindness and send the loving kindness to that person. And that person might also feel one way or the other. Eventually that person will feel, this person is not so aggressive. Even the animals can feel it. Humans definitely can feel. At the beginning, they might, stop insulting you. It will take some time, but that person will stop insulting you by the power of your loving kindness. And later on, that person will feel the energy, the good energy, positive energy in you. So he will also calm down. So you send loving kindness to that. May he be well, happy, healthy. May he get all the comforts, whatever, food or whatever, just be good to that person. That way I think you feel good. And eventually that will benefit the other person as well.
Thank you so much, Bante. Doesn't have a trace of hate in his mind. It's hard for me to imagine you ever having had any irritation, Bante Sumita. And good to see you, Putrika. You're so kind. So we only have a couple of minutes left, so maybe we can take one question per monastic. So maybe Bante Sumita, here it says, Vic asks, the Buddha has described that liberation can occur in the in-between state also. Is that correct? He can't remember the suttam, so it's
liberation in between.
Antara Parinibbāya and Agami. What I mentioned a few moments ago that we should have a discussion about sometime.
So we'll keep it for next week then.
Yeah.
okay.
Because that's not a short answer. That's a long, complicated answer.
Then maybe you can answer the next one. Angela asks, at what point in the Buddhist journey are we able to remember our last lives?
It depends on person to person, right? Some children, they remember their past lives, some not necessarily. It depends on you. Like if I ask you, what did you eat yesterday, you remember? You can, right? Yeah, you will probably, yes. You'll take some time, but moments, I ate this one, right? But if I ask you, what did you eat last week? Then you will scratch your head. It will take some more time to think. Maybe you will be able to recollect, but maybe not. If I ask you, what did you eat last month? You will be it will be all out of your mind, so it's just like that. We don't remember. Does it mean we were not existing? We had our food. We remember that much. We had our food last month, but we don't remember. So similarly, our past births, we don't remember all of them, but we still remember some of those, the habits. We still have those habits. I remember the Buddha was talking about one time, some monks were walking in the paddy field, and there was one young Samanera monk, and then all the other monks, while they were crossing the paddy field, there is a small water passage. All the monks were like stepping on the water and cross. And this young monk, he was young and energetic. He jumped from this side to that side, And then the other monks are looking at him, and they were like little upset. And then, then the Buddha said, the habits, the karmic habits, the past habits come to you. He was actually a monkey before. So the habits can come to you. Some people like falling asleep all the time. They can also be karmic habit. And some people would like to do some scratching. They are also karmic habits. Past habits can be with you, but not necessarily you will remember all of them. But they will be there when the conditions are right. So I really strongly recommend, try not to give conditions for the past bad karma to come to you. If you have good energy, positive energy, they might come to you, but they will search for a condition. If the condition is not right, they will run away. For example, you are in empty cloud monastery meditating, feeling good, noble silence, and so much good people around, and though bad karma will come to you, trying to sneak into you, they will not get a moment. They will go away, bounce back, and some of those karma will never come back. So keep working on that good condition all the time, being positive, happy, so most of those bad karma will bounce back, never to return. So much the better.
Great, thank you, Vante. And Kauser friend asks, when remembering past lives, where do these memories come from? I think it's been covered, right?
Yeah, I think that's answered.
And Mark asks, could Bhante Sumita, the best, most,
The MVP.
yeah, could Bhante Sumita comment on what he meant by a crack in the cycle of transmigration earlier?
Yeah, that's actually the Sotapanna, I must say. We are going to discuss about the 10 fetters, Dasa Sangyojanas, and in that I would like to talk about more about that, because we continue to traverse in this samsara. We don't know how to get rid of it. It's like a whirlpool. We are trapped, and we will continue to, circle around, and we don't know how to come out of it. As I mentioned yesterday also, those 3 massive objects will disappear, but we will still be in the samsara due to our avijja, or the ignorance. And then we have to crack open it, decode that, and hopefully Sakkaya Ditti is the first thing. So Sakkaya Ditti, Vichikicha, Silabhata, Paramasa, if we deal with this, we will become Sotapanna. And Sotapanna will be the first crack. If you are in the Sotapanna stage, you will definitely be enlightened sooner.
Maybe so. And Don says, following up on the sleepiness struggle of meditation, how to sit with the opposite, restlessness? Bhante Sanata Vihari.
Yeah, so for that, I really use metta meditation a lot, and a lot of endurance and patience. And yeah, so I think for restlessness, patience is the best thing, because the thing about being excited or anxious or worried is that it seems so important, whatever's happening at that moment, and the mind is racing, is thinking of all these things, and it's trying to give you something to get stuck on, because it wants to do everything but except what you're doing right now. So once you learn that, like, it's just gibberish and it doesn't matter and none of it really has any meaning and it's not important and you don't have to do anything about it, that you don't have to listen to your thoughts, or that you don't have to listen to your body wanting to move and telling you to get up or to do something, you need to do this, you need to do that. Once you learn just to kind of not listen to it, then that's how you get over it. But it takes time of just sitting and being patient with all this physical and mental stuff that's going on.
Great, thank you, Bhante. And Angela, Bhante Sudaso goes like this because we're close to 9 p.m. He's the timekeeper. And he knows I'm a little flexible. So Angela says, does anyone else ever get angry at the persistence of delusion? It's funny that you ask, because that's actually usually the source of my aversion. Like, I always get averse about such things. Not always, but that's whenever aversion appears in the mind, it's because of that. And then I reflect, wow, I get averse at something, so I create basically more delusion. It's kind of like you get averse to dust on the floor, so you're like, let me get some more dust and throw it on the floor. So this is the process of delusion. So we're completely unaware, and we just create, more suffering for ourselves and others. And I think that's all for tonight. Since it's 9 p.m. on the dot, and lots of fans of Bhante Sumita have appreciative words. Yes, we're big fans of Bhante Sumita as well, which is why we have invited him again, with the hope for him to say yes, and he said yes to stay for the Vasa. So hopefully, you'll see more and more of him online. So if tomorrow you're around the Empty Cloud Monastery, there will be a big ceremony here for a Salha Puja. I don't know about big ceremony, actually, depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from an Asian Buddhist center, there will be a tiny, small, imperceptible ceremony for Salha Puja. If you're coming from a scientific materialist background, it's over-the-top ceremony. So it's probably an in-between the reality. Anyway, you're welcome to come. We'll be here for the whole day, up until 5 p.m. or so. And then on Sunday, if you want to stop by the monastery, there will be a volunteer day. So different tasks and chores, and you can help out keeping the monastery somewhat alive and somewhat well. And then we'll be meeting again next week. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 a.m. there is Sutta study. And then every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday evening at 7:30 p.m. we have different Dhamma discussions or Dhamma talks happening. So hope to see you very soon, either in person or virtually live. And maybe we can end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.